Welcome to Safe Harbour, and today we're going to be talking about, ironically, why don't men talk? That's the subject of today's show. We feel as if it's really important to be able to explore this and unpack this, and so myself and Jamie will be doing this over the next half an hour, and we're really happy to have you with us. Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, I like this topic, and it's a really nice sunny day, so I'm feeling good. Yeah, feeling fresh.
Yeah, so it's morning. It's 10:30 in the UK when we're recording this, and we were looking through a list. So just to be really transparent, we have a list of ideas which we're gathering for shows moving forwards based upon your wonderful feedback and upon what we feel as if are hot topics arising in the moment. And this is one that we keep getting asked from males and from females. Why is it the men don't talk? And is there any suggestions or things that you can offer up by way to make that easier, to make that kind of ability for men to share easier? And I think it would be nice, Jamie, for us to explore, first of all, or to have some conversation around our own experiences of this, because we are men, and I found it incredibly difficult in the past to talk and share, and I've needed to have some things in place in order for that to happen. And so maybe it'd be nice and powerful and good for us to jump in and speak about our own journeys with sharing and what that means to us. I'm noticing I'm feeling quite vulnerable about this, actually, as I'm talking.
Yeah, what's that showing? What's that coming up?
Yeah, because this is still, we're trained coaches, but for me, it's still a vulnerable place to share. I choose my people who I share with. He says, doing a podcast. So where I don't know who's listening. So I'm really fascinated about that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to throw this over to you to get rid of it from me, as it were. But I feel like I am wanting to do that a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a bit on the spot.
Yeah.
So what is it for you?
What do you want to stay with it? Is there some merit in staying there? What's that feeling
talk?
about?
Yeah. Let's do that then, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So it's, why don't I talk? When I don't talk, why don't I talk? I think that might be an interesting place for us to kick this off.
So what is it?
Well, because I'm feeling afraid that when I do share, it'll be thrown back at me, or I'll be told that it's not valid. Like that thing which I can have regular conversations with, in a regular format with most people at any point in time. But I suppose what we're talking about here, why don't men talk? Why don't men talk about the important shit, the stuff that is really staying with them, the stuff that is really difficult to share? And for me, the thing that stops me from doing that is I don't feel safe sharing it because I feel like it might be thrown back at me.
Yeah.
Even if it won't be. But it prevents me, and I think, okay, no, I'll deal with this first of all until it's less hot of a subject or a topic. And then I'll be like, okay, now I feel safe enough to share that with someone I care about.
So how would you know when it is safe to share?
Well, I know when it's unsafe to share because my body reacts, and I feel like I get smaller. I'm avoidant. I can change the subject. I can just physically in my being get smaller. My shoulders go forwards, and my tactic, my tendency, if I have some vulnerable conversation or some stuff that I want to share, or some stuff that is burdening me, my tactic is to avoid and go elsewhere. So I might jump into YouTube and get lost in that for hours, or I might eat something nice that I know is going to give me a guaranteed sense of satisfaction. Anything to avoid the, in inverted commas, pain or the struggle with approaching something that is challenging.
So go to comfort.
Yeah, I go to something that guarantees me comfort. Yeah.
Right. So what happens to that conversation that you didn't have? What happens to that? Where does that go?
It doesn't really go anywhere. I don't think it dissipates. it stays in my system. Sometimes I work it through. Sometimes time is what is needed for it to dissipate naturally, and it doesn't become a thing anymore, or it certainly isn't as hot anymore. And it just dissipates naturally. It's almost like a cloud slowly disintegrating, and then it's not a thing on my horizon anymore. But I do notice that some things, some subjects and some topics need to be spoken about, otherwise they don't leave me.
You're right. I was talking to my wife this morning on a walk, and I hope I can remember the sentence, but it reminds me of this. It says, burnout happens when the arc of the pain is not allowed to take its full cycle. That difficult conversation doesn't leave your body, then it stays in you, and it can add to trauma, and it can add to that burnout sensation of holding on to it. That it doesn't take its full cycle by releasing it, by having that conversation. And that really sat with me, actually, like that I can carry all of these toxic things inside me, and that's what adds to my burnout, because I don't have chance to release them safely. I don't get a chance if I don't get a chance to have these conversations with other men in a safe way. They stay with me, and they burden me, and they become toxic, I guess, in some kind of way.
That was the word that was coming up for me, actually, toxic.
Yeah.
It feels like sometimes poisonous, like something I want to rid my system of. I love what you were saying there in terms of when we dare to air that thing which we're sat with, it clears out from our system, and it allows it to become something different.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not about, for me then, it's not about burdening someone else with that thing. It's not like a hot potato and I've got to get wow, this is hot, I'm going to pass this to my mate. For me to feel safe to speak this out and have this conversation, I need to feel safe that this is not going to then he's just going to pass that to someone else, because then I've burdened him with it, like a secret. As a kid, I was like, I've got to get rid of this secret. I've got to get rid of it because I can't carry it around with me anymore.
Yeah. I'm really curious actually around how you know when you're holding on to something that needs to be shared or wants to be shared, as opposed to, here's something I just want to talk about. What's the difference?
I think if it's something I want to share with someone, it might be shame. It might be something that I can't talk to someone else about. That I'm part of a men's group. I'm a part of a men's circle, and we've been together now for 3 years almost. And there's between 6 and 8 of us sit in circle. And even on Zoom during lockdown, we've sat in circle. And by default, that is a safe space. We've designed it that way so that we do not share what's spoken in that circle ever to anyone, even to other people within that circle. Whatever I bring, it might be something to do with shame, something that even from my past that I just want to clear out. It's a dark shadow that I can't be with anymore because it's shrouding me with shame, and it's having an impact on my life, and I want to share it with these guys that I really trust and love. Actually, I love these guys. We're like brothers. We've known each other in deep conversation. We've shared some real big stuff together, so I can feel safe in that space. And when that circle is finished and we put the fire out, done. We walk away and we have a cup of tea, and we don't even talk about what's happened in that circle.
I love that. It's kind of like a clearing space. There's something, and there's obviously something very ceremonial about the structure that you do and you design together with those men, that I would feel is there's preparedness. I know that I'm going to have these conversations. I know that I'm going to share because I trust these people, and I know the system. I know the process. Like, we're going to step into this space, into this ring. We're going to sit in the circle. We're going to talk together. And then I know that I can share in this space. But then once it's done, it's done. It's not going to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that must take some preparation, though. You can't just walk into that off the street and trust those guys enough to not, blurt on Facebook about, just been to this awesome night with these bunch of guys. Tell you what, though, John, bit of a tosser,
I can't believe it's... Yeah, what a big...
He did what?
Yeah. So yeah, it's taken time. That men's group has taken time to evolve into what it is now. It's been designed and redesigned, and we design it each time we get together, actually. As I'm thinking, we choose a topic, or it kind of evolves. We have some silence at the beginning. We light the fire, and we bring coffee and toast, and we sit outside and by a fire and cover ourselves in smoke, and it goes back hundreds of years. Men sat around a fire, just tribal. And so it speaks to that part of us as men that it kind of activates something in me, actually. It activates something that while I'm around this fire, anything goes. I can say anything, do anything, cry, laugh, and I am often moved to tears by my own sharing, because I don't expect what's going to come, and we don't prepare anything when we sit down around that fire. The talking stick comes and we speak when that's handed to us, and when that talking stick is in my hand, no one else speaks, and same for the other guys. And we sometimes have a bit of a timer on it so that we don't spend hours, but it is very ceremonious. It definitely speaks to that lineage of ancestry, sitting around a fire and speaking to the fire, and through the fire that permeates into the circle, and we just listen. That real deep listening that happens in that space is beautiful, actually.
So what I hear is that men can share. It is definitely doable. It's possible. Men and a bunch of guys together, not just one-on-one, which I'm really curious to explore as well in a minute. But it feels like once there's a bunch of guys together who have a system and a structure and a safe container, it sounds like there's no hesitation. It feels safe enough to share. I'm wondering what you get out of doing that. Like, how does it feel after you've shared in that container, in that structure?
Great question. And I guess I feel huge connection. We can't hug at the moment, obviously, because of COVID, but pre-COVID, we would all come together. We hold hands around the fire at the end, and making me emotional thinking about it. And wow, it's really powerful, actually, because I'm back there. I'm right around the fire, and I'm holding these guys' hands, and we stand around the fire, and we scan each other, and we look at each other in silence, and we're brothers. And we look into each other's eyes, and there aren't any words, but we just look around the circle. And I feel huge gratitude to be part of that community for that short space of time, a few hours. And we hear each other, what's really going on for each other as guys. And I feel huge gratitude for that.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that emotion that came up there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's the power of... It's a dormant masculinity and femininity, if that's the right thing to say. I don't quite know. They kind of gel together. There's this real sensitive space that we hold, where all emotions are welcome, which is just really unusual for men. I think to come together in that way and speak from our hearts. That we don't get down the pub or, at a football match or whatever your thing is. When you talk to other guys, there's that's like a dump. I experience that as being dumped on, especially when there's alcohol involved, which is great sometimes. Go down the pub and have a bit of a moan, and that's great. I do that too. Moan about life and chew the fat like my granddad did. Just play dominoes and talk a load of crap.
So what comes up for me when you talk about all this is it sounds like a beautiful gift that you give to yourself, this ceremonial getting together in a men's circle and talking in that way. Now, I'm not involved in a men's circle, and I never have been on a long-term kind of basis. I've only dabbled, and because I think these are structures that require long-term engagement and investment, right? You have to meet with the same people, and in order to have the safety and the trust that that John and Craig and Steve are all going to show up, and they're all going to be there, and they're going to be present, and you know that you can trust them with your shit, and they can trust you with their shit, and so it's not going to leave the circle. And I know that you can jump in, because we've done circles, you and I, we've led them on Zoom with complete strangers, because we've created that space to be really safe. I think it's panned out that way. But I would imagine it goes really deep if you have a duration of time together where you trust each other on such a deep level that you can just talk about anything and everything. The taboo, you bring the taboo to those conversations.
Yeah. There's stories that we've shared that have gone back, a long time, right from when we were boys. In fact, we might have started out at the beginning. One of the founders who came up with the idea for us to get together, the opening topic was to speak about our fathers. So we came and say, my name is Jamie, and my father or my dad is Jeff Robins, and my granddad is Roy Robins. So straight away there was this beautiful lineage, and then we spoke about our dads, what he does for a job, and how was he as a dad, and then we spoke about our granddads. My granddad was a miner. He had really soft hands, and I really remember him, and so we really started off on this footing of ancestry and lineage, and then we went deeper into that as we continued with our journey. And we spoke about our mothers, and so there are some strong topics to sort of really dig into, really understanding where Jamie comes from and what was his town. We spoke about our towns, where we grew up, It
has me think about, when you're getting to know someone. So if you start work in a new job and you have new colleagues, and you start gently getting to know each other over the coffee or over the water cooler, and it's like, oh, hi, how you doing? Yeah, not too bad, I'm settling in fine. It takes time, doesn't it? You have to go through these layers and these levels of formality, maybe, and then you have a little shared joke together, and then you have a bit of repetition, and there's I can trust this guy, if it is a guy, to this degree. I wonder if I can just start showing, oh, what are you doing at the weekend? We soften and we open gently, gradually, granular. Yeah. And it feels like that you jumping into that structure of talking about your ancestry is right to the very beginning of who you are, isn't it? Like your formulation is like, this is who I am. These are my ancestors. Even though you're not with them physically standing next to each other, you're introducing the lineage to those guys, and they're doing the same, which feels like a really foundational. Yeah. Which you wouldn't necessarily do over the kettle at work.
And what that enabled us to really recognize in each other was where we've come from. Like my granddad was a miner. My granddad went down the coalface 1.5 miles underground and hit the coalface with a pick up to his chest in black coal water, for 7-8 hours a day. I can't imagine. Can you imagine that?
No.
That's where I've come from. That's in my DNA. That working class background has formed who I am, and I can choose, obviously, to shift and adjust that who I am. But that's my lineage. That's where I've come from. And to hear that was beautiful, because some of them have come from, higher class levels, and they've travelled a different path to get to where they are now.
So it sounds like their lineage has formed their story of who they are, and maybe given them more grounding to be able to speak more freely and trust. But not necessarily. I mean, I suppose I'm now transitioning into a place where, the title of this episode is "Why Don't Men Talk?" And it sounds like how men can talk if they were to come to a men's group, if they were to. But that's few. It's so few and far between, isn't it? It's difficult to find, difficult to discover.
Yeah.
It's difficult to dare to even trust that, to have that conversation and say, oh, can I come along and see what that shit is like? It can be scary. I'm just thinking, how do men start to even, in their everyday lives, start to let go or release some of this tension, some of this, I get this pressure cooker steam of, through sharing? How might the everyday person who's listening to this right now, who happens to be a guy and wants to share, how might they go about doing that? And I'm not putting you on the spot, but let's have a share around that.
I think what the first thing that comes to mind for me is, from my own experience, pre-men's groups, I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I say that, well, I did. I got friends to talk to, but I think what I know now, with hindsight, is my friends didn't know how to listen to me properly. I say properly, I mean skillfully. They didn't know how to just listen. And I think that is a skill in itself. So I think if men are to share outside of men's groups, if they're, like you say, everyday sharing, is for you and your friend, to a chosen friend, a good friend who you really trust, to not share your stuff. And one simple way of doing that is a listening partnership, where you just design it together that one person speaks for 5 minutes and the other person listens, like really listens, like listens to every single word and really stays present to those words and doesn't go off into a place of trying to fix or what can I say to him when he's finished to make him feel better. Just really listen for 5 minutes, set a timer. And then when the timer goes off, you don't talk about that thing. You just switch. You maybe just, shake off whatever it is, switch the timer, and then your friend shares for 5 minutes something that he's got going on for him. And that's just called a sharing partnership. And that's a way to skillfully speak about something that's going on for you, and the other person just listen and
Beautiful.
absorb that, and just let it sit in each other's hearts, and then just go for a walk. And if you choose to talk about it and unpack it a bit, great. But just try to avoid fixing or, wanting to make it better for him and vice versa.
So that's a beautiful, simple structure that anyone could do without any training, really, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
I love how you say, try not to fix it, because I think we equate so much of our value, not just as men, as human beings, to being valuable to the other. And here I've got some answers for you. You sound like you're struggling, and I can provide those answers. And we can equate and attach and hang our value off of the fact that we can provide solutions in that way. So this is a very different flavor of listening.
Yeah, one thing, I don't know what you think about this, but one thing, instead of fixing, like we do in Safe Harbour meetings, we reflect. So a guy will share for 5 minutes, and then we offer, there's an invitation for that guy who's just shared for reflections back. So what's your interpretation of that, Phil? If you were to reflect back at something I've just shared, what would that look like for our listeners to sort of put into practice?
A reflection would be, so if you imagine that the name would imply that it's almost like a light beam or something is emitted from you. As you've spoken, those words have come out of you and they've hit me. The response or the reaction to those words that I'm feeling, that I'm noticing, are reflections. So instead of me saying to you, Jamie, yeah, I hear that's a bit of a ball like that thing you just described. Here's an idea. Yeah, you do this, you do that, and you do this. Instead of going to that place, which is an avoidance place, really, and it's equating value to fixing the problem. Instead of doing that, to be more in this sort of space, what I might do is to reflect upon when your words landed with me, this is how I felt. Because some response happened to me and rose up, and there's a reflection, like in a mirror, based upon what you've just said. And so I noticed, just in relation to specifically that thing that you were just talking about, when you got emotional, actually, when you felt some emotion just previously, I was like, he's feeling emotion there. I notice in me that brings up a little bit emotion, a bit of emotion in me, because I'm feeling your feeling. I'm feeling the resonance with getting back to standing around that fire with those guys, and I sometimes yearn for that, and I remember that. So I might share that with you. I might share what it brings up in me when you share. I'm taking your content like a Rubik's Cube, and I'm jiggling it around, and I'm fixing it, and I'm giving it back to you. This is a very different form of conversation, isn't it?
That's a perfect metaphor, yeah. I like that. The Rubik's Cube, yeah. Like it's your responsibility to fix my problem. I don't want you to fix my problem. I just want you to hear me. Because I've got this thing to say. And like we were saying earlier, I just need to tell someone about it and share it and set it free from me so it can lighten that burden from me. That's all I want you to do is listen. And it can feel so counterintuitive to just listen and not reply. It takes practice. I can tell you, it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, it's like building a muscle, isn't it? Like we have this right arm, which is like, it's so well defined, and it's like, yeah, mate, I can solve those problems. You know, I can fix your computer. I can do this. I've got these skills. Look at me. It's like putting up a hand in school. It's just like, yay, I'll put my hand up. I know the answer. Oh, I know it. And I think we're so celebrated at school for that, that it's really hard to break away from it, to hold back and say, actually, I do know the answer potentially to what you're describing, but how are you ever going to be able to live autonomously and know that you can find your own resolution if you're reliant on me to fix? You know, I think that's the important dialogue in coaching, isn't it? It's like, we're not here to fix people. We're here to hold space for those people to become totally aware that they can find the solutions. They can source the things that they need to do, which will get them through this spot that they're currently in.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as you go to start thinking about how can I fix this problem for this person, then you go into your own head and you're not listening to that person's sharing anymore.
Yeah.
Go into your head. How can I fix this? How can I fix this? And you've gone. You've lost yourself. You're not actually listening to them anymore.
You can't be, can you? You can't be in two places at once, you know?
No. No. And another one I like also is, who is this in service of? Like, if I'm trying to fix something, who is this in service? Is this in service of my friend who's sharing this really sensitive piece of thing? Is my answer to it in service of him or in service of my ego, like to make me look good when he shared this and go, oh mate, I'm really sorry to hear that. You know what you should do, right?
You know what you should do. Yeah.
And again, that's another male thing, isn't it? Ego. We could do a whole episode on ego.
Yeah.
We won't do that now, but
our egos would love that, wouldn't they?
Wow. Yeah.
The Phil and Jamie show. We're doing a show on ego.
Ego,
Fantastic.
man.
Yeah.
Okay, here we strap ourselves in, baby.
We were talking that we would do a whole show on that actually moving forwards. We would do a whole podcast episode on how to listen well. We think that's a really important skill that deserves more than just a sort of passing glance that we're giving it right now. But just know that that's to come in the future. Something else which I feel as if is a kind of... These feel like really nice takeaways for guys particularly to pick up and start to practice, start to build that muscle that's not necessarily well defined in ways of listening and ways of communicating and possibilities of sharing. One thing, you know, if you're listening to someone or listening to a friend who's sharing and you can feel that it's getting a little bit deeper aside from, you know, what he just saw on TV, and you have this urge to kind of speak or respond to it a little bit too quickly, just like Jamie just said, with a really beautiful filter. You know, for me, one thing that I run my thoughts through before I do engage my speaking is just to say, why am I speaking? Why am I speaking? So I'm just about to talk and I think, okay, why am I speaking? Where am I taking this person? Exactly as you say, Jamie, same end result. It's like, am I speaking because I want to sound good? I want to help this person, or is it that I just want to shut him up? Sometimes it's too vulnerable, and we can throw our words in there into the space almost as a blocker. It's like, don't speak about that. I'm not ready. We're in the middle of the high street. I need a couple of drinks before I can talk about that sort of thing. So why am I speaking? And for me, what that does is it's like a little funnel which filters out through the sediment all of the content that doesn't necessarily need to come through and is based upon my fear or my ego. And it just allows out the essence, which is, okay, I'm saying these words because this guy feels like he wants some support right now. He wants to know he's not alone. And that very often slows down the conversation. And very often I say what is supportive of us together in this conversation, as opposed to me looking good.
Yeah. What I love about that is, what that has me go to is ask another question. Instead of a reply or a fix, ask another question. And a really simple one is, and what really matters to you about that, mate? What's really important to you about that? And what that might allow your friend to do is go another layer under the main thing, you know. What's important to you about that? And then you could even go, and what's important to you about that? You know, and down you go. And you'll get into this, I make up that you'll get into this real rich reservoir of, by asking those questions, get into the real rich reservoir of what's really there underneath this thing that your friend has dared to share with you, you know, and acknowledge your friend for daring to share this, because this thing might have been a big thing that he's been carrying around. Handle it with care, handle it with respect, and express your gratitude and acknowledge him for sharing that, because it's really important. I think that's a really important piece to this. That if we dare to bring that, if we dare, then please, because that can really validate it somehow, that it can be, give that guy permission to do it again next time you get together. Because he'll know he's safe. He will know that it's safe to do that again and again. And in return, you'll be able to do that with him too, because you'll be modeling to him what that looks like, to validate it and to acknowledge him. And he'll do that for you too. It'll come back to you for sure. Absolutely will.
That's great. And it feels like we're sort of coming into land around this subject for this particular show. One thing is just that you mentioned there a couple of times, and I think there's almost a whole podcast episode on that, as well as acknowledgement as a coaching skill, as a tool, but as in everyday life as well, not just in coaching. You know, acknowledgement is a huge thing, and I almost don't want to take the lid off it right now because it's too important. But you mentioned it there, and just briefly, it's kind of when someone has shared so openly, don't leave them hanging. It's like seal it with a hug, almost a virtual hug, through the form of an acknowledgement. I acknowledge, I hear you. When you say that, I recognize how painful this situation is for you, and I'm here for you. You're very brave to speak about such thing. Thank you. It's kind of like, just to wrap it up and to put the lid back on the box, like the Tupperware box, to keep it kind of, boom, back in again, contained.
Yeah, and it's okay to check in and say, how you doing? How you doing after sharing that? That's a big one. Yeah. I really hear that, yeah.
There's a piece around stay.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that moving forward as well, like stay in this moment. It's okay. We don't have to rush it.
Yeah. And you, the listener, dare to stay. Yeah, it's about daring, isn't it? There's a lot of daring here. Like, dare to go to that edge and be there with your mate on the edge of that cliff. You know, it's one thing for your mate to dare to share that. Yeah, but really dare to stay with him. You know, don't rush it on because it makes you feel uncomfortable, or resist the temptation to rush it on because it feels uncomfortable for you. Dare to stay, be there for him, lean into him, because this could be the moment that really catapults him on through this thing that's been really tough. You know, dare to be there for your mate.
Yeah, and I think that points to the future episode where we'll talk about how to hold space, how to listen well. I know it feels like we're almost chomping at the bit to go there right now, but I want
it does, yeah.
I want to be honourable with people's time and our listeners' ears.
Yeah.
So that feels like a really lovely wrap up and conclusion to this podcast episode. Why don't men talk? Yeah. So thank you, Jamie. I hope that all of you out there have picked up some reflections and some ways of being with your men and your friends, and do let us know. Do let us know, what you're taking away from this show and how it's landed for you.
I love you all, men. Yeah, men do talk.
Yeah.
Men do talk. We can talk.
We can and we should and we must. Yeah.
Go well, men.